The word I'm looking for. 4. I Was Soaring Ever Higher by TinyButFierce. A ship sped through the stars towards a small blue planet on the horizon. The ship was not a war vessel, it was full of refugees. Refugees who needed a new home and were clinging to their leaders' connections on that small blue planet. The ship slowed down as it approached, stopping itself a good distance away from the planet. They couldn't enter a sustained orbit, but the primitive planet had multitudes of circling objects that would be disrupted if the ship, a good size bigger than those small objects, were to come up at a close range. The smaller ship undocked from the vessel and streamed its way towards the small blue planet, entering the atmosphere, flying down towards a city of rising skyscrapers. The ship angled itself towards one specific building. This building had a landing pad for a ship their size, and it just so happened that they knew the owner. Surely he would be fine with their unauthorized landing. The occupants of the craft noted, with some interest, that all the letters of the owner's name had been added back to the side of the building. Surely nothing too drastic had occurred in their absence. The minute that their ship dropped onto the landing pad, silent alarms were triggered throughout the building. Thankfully, it was the weekend, so the only people present in the majority of the levels were security guards, who noted the alarm with interest. The presence of superpowered individuals in the area made alarms a regular occurrence. At least they didn't have to evacuate yet. There was one individual who didn't classify as a security guard, though. Usually, there would be more. The family that lived towards the top of the tower stayed at home more than not. On this particular weekend, however, all of the adult presence was away at work, be it as a CEO, nurse, or a superhero fighting with his team somewhere in the Midwest. Peter Parker was in his room tinkering with an Iron Man gauntlet when the alarms went off. Normally, he would have been working on his web shooters. No, his web shooters were in his backpack that he had accidentally left at Ned's house the day before. So he had to make do. Not that an Iron Man gauntlet was somehow less interesting than his web shooters. It was just a little more dangerous, which, he had to admit, did make it more exciting at least. His inner child was still freaking out, though. Moments before the alarm had gone off, he tensed, feeling like something was about to happen. Then it did. At least he had a weapon with him. Why did it always have to be an Iron Man gauntlet whenever things like this happened? If this kept happening, Tony was going to think he was trying to steal his job. Friday chimed in with the alarm. An unauthorized craft has landed. An alert has been sent to Boss, and he is currently changing course towards the tower, citing that the other Avengers can deal with the swarm of large moths. The craft appears to be extraterrestrial in origin. I would recommend staying put until the situation resolves. Peter stood up from his desk and slid the gauntlet onto his hand. Friday, how could you just ask me to just chill here while I could go see aliens? The team started to creep towards the good door, gauntlet at the ready. Mini-boss, I would advise against this action. Peter swung the door open quietly, gauntlet held out in front, and quietly apologized to Friday, who told him that she was alerting Tony to his actions. He winced. No doubt he'd hear some words about this later. The hallway was clear. He crept down the side, aware that Friday was tracking his every movement. He made it to the end of the hallway and quickly flipped around the corner to the sight of the empty living room and the craft sitting on the other side of the glass. The craft looked worn down, definitely alien in origin. As Peter was looking at the ship, the ramp lowered down and he could see 3 sets of legs start to walk down the incline. He watched as the figures came into better view. He didn't recognize the one on the far left, but she looked like someone he did not want to mess with. The other 2, though, he knew them. He knew them and he was pissed. With a burst of fury, he stalked through the living room and threw the door to the landing strip open. The 3 people came to a stop as Peter raised the activated gauntlet towards them. Valkyrie reached for her sword, but paused when Thor waved his hand to stop her action. Bruce, standing on the other side of Thor, immediately raised his hands in the air and stared at Peter with a bewildered expression. Thor straightened up and said, "Seek the man of iron and intend you no harm. Would you be knowledgeable as to his whereabouts?" Peter glared at the group and pointed at Thor and Bruce. "You left." Thor frowned. "I'm not quite sure of what you speak, but—" Bruce whacked Thor on the arm and leaned his head towards Peter, face contorted in a shocked yet also questioning expression. He loudly whispered, "Tony?" Peter's eyebrows shot up in surprise, and Thor leaned back, praising Peter with a new eye. "That cannot be the man of iron," Thor said. Bruce nodded his head up and down and said, "Tony wouldn't let anyone else operate his personal armor." Valkyrie chimed in, "I'm just here for the booze." Peter, glad for a change in topic from what was a particularly weird accusation, answered the lady with the sword. "There isn't any alcohol on these levels, but there might be some lower in the tower." A gasp sounded from Bruce, and Thor frowned. "No spirits in the home of the man of iron? Something is certainly amiss." Bruce started walking slowly towards Peter, hands still in the air as the gauntlet pointed towards him. Did you get DH'd, Tony?" Right before Peter could respond, with a rightfully confused exclamation, the telltale sound of the full Iron Man suit came echoing towards the group. Tony landed in front of Peter, shielding him with his body, and pointed his repulsors towards the group of three. The mask flipped down to show Tony's face. To anyone who didn't know him, he would appear confident as well as aggressive. To Peter, he looked sad and maybe a little wounded. "Bruce, Point Break." Tony looked over at Valkyrie. "Scary sword lady. What are you doing back on our humble planet, and what did you do to make my kid threaten you?" A chorus of oohs met his question. Thor nodded towards Peter. "It is good to meet you, son of Stark. Your father is a valiant warrior." Tony snorted. "I'm surprised that Peter here isn't freaking out right now. He's a big fan of yours." The Iron Man suit dispersed back into the holding cell, resting on Tony's chest as Peter walked forward. "I'm freaking out inside. I was stuck between the decision to be mad at all of these peeps for heading off to space and leaving you to deal with the fallout of everything that happened, or to start screaming really loud and jump up and down and request a bunch of selfies because, oh my god, Bruce Banner and Thor are standing right in front of me, and I love them, but I'm also mad at them, and I'm so conflicted." Everyone stared at Peter, astonished that he had said all of that in about one breath. Thor laughed. "Hey, I can see the resemblance. Now, man of iron, I must speak with you." Tony and Thor walked off towards a meeting room, leaving Peter to accommodate Bruce and Valkyrie. The three were left in the living room, Bruce staring at Peter with a sliver of shock in his eyes, as Valkyrie stood with her arms crossed. The teen slid the Iron Man gauntlet off of his hand and placed it on the coffee table. "So, can I get either of you something to drink?" "Alcohol," Valkyrie said. Bruce followed her statement with a quiet request for water. Friday chimed in from above, causing both Bruce and Valkyrie to jump. "I have completed a scan for alcohol, and there is none present in the tower. Might I recommend the delicacy known as chocolate milk?" Valkyrie eyed the ceiling, looking from where the voice was coming from, hand on her sword. "If that's what you recommend." Peter smiled and started heading towards the kitchen. "Thanks, Friday." "My pleasure, mini-boss." Once Peter returned to the group with their drinks, he handed the chocolate milk to Valkyrie, and they watched as the warrior took a sip. She looked up and nodded. "This is acceptable." Peter fist-pumped, and Bruce looked bewildered. Valkyrie sat down on the couch and continued to drink her chocolate milk, while Bruce leaned over to talk to Peter. "So, Peter, right? What was the old? I don't remember Tony having a kid from before I left. Have I been gone longer than I thought, or have you been around but we didn't know about you? Speaking of, where are the other Avengers?" "Oh," Peter said, "Tony's not actually my biological dad. We met a few years ago when I got an internship at SI. So don't worry, he wasn't hiding me from you. Other Avengers are apparently fighting giant moths somewhere in the Midwest, but they probably won't be around for a while, because they'll have to debrief with the Accords Committee once the battle is done. Bruce frowned. Accords? Yeah, Peter said. The Accords. It's a long story, but the short and sweet version is that the Avengers are now a United Nations Supervisory Committee, and there was a huge fight around it, and my dad got really hurt. And you and Thor really could have been helpful, so even though you two are fantastic, I'm still salty. While Bruce and Peter were talking, Valkyrie wandered off to the kitchen to get more chocolate milk. It sounds like I missed a lot then, Bruce said. Peter, what have you been telling him? Tony said as he and Thor walked back into the room. Not that much, I swear. Sure, I believe that, Tony said, smirking as he walked forward to clap his hand on Peter's shoulder. Thor has informed me that he left his brother in charge of a massive refugee ship, so we could probably let them get back there while I put in some calls to the UN. I don't want Loki getting any more ideas about world domination. Thor frowned. While my brother has indeed acted rashly in the past, I can assure you that— Yeah, I get it, Point Break. I was just joking. Tony turned and whispered to Peter. I wasn't joking. He looked back up at Thor. You should probably go check on your ship. It might take a while for me to arrange a meeting with the UN for you. When you do, call for Heimdall and he will alert me. Call for Eye in the Sky, got it. My companions and I will eagerly await your call, yes. Thor began walking towards his ship, gesturing for Bruce and Valkyrie to follow. Valkyrie walked past the group with the entire jug of chocolate milk in her hand, raising it towards Peter as she passed. Bruce took a few steps forward to follow Thor when Tony interjected. Bruce, you know you can stay here, right? The scientist looked at the ground and smiled a self-depreciating smile. I don't think I should stay here, Tony. I missed a lot, and I wasn't here when you needed me. Besides, someone has to keep an eye on Loki. Tony assessed his friend and nodded. Okay. Thanks for the offer, though. I guess I'll see you again soon. Say hi from me to everyone. Will do. Bruce nodded towards Peter. It was nice to meet you, Peter. You too, Peter exclaimed. They watched as the group of three boarded the ship, watched as the ramp closed and the craft took off, watched as it aimed towards the stars. Tony wrapped his arms around Peter, who reciprocated the hug. So, Tony said, what happened before I got here? Peter snorted. Bruce thought that I was you, but de-aged. What? Yeah,